Have you ever noticed how one relationship makes you feel anchored, clear, almost unstoppable, and another makes you second guess every decision like you're walking through a minefield? Same man, same intelligence, same drive, but the psychological environment is different, and environment shapes behavior. A lot of men are taught to think relationships are mainly about loyalty, chemistry, and shared plans. That's the quiet harbor idea. Two people, equal effort, mutual respect. When it's healthy, that's real. But there's a darker architecture that can exist under the surface. One that doesn't announce itself with screaming matches, obvious threats, or dramatic ultimatums. It operates with tone, timing, implication, and pressure. It wins not by force, but by redesigning your internal decision making until you start policing yourself. This isn't a rant. This isn't a revenge story. This is about mechanics. Because the most dangerous influence is the kind you don't recognize as influence. It feels like love. It sounds like concern. It presents itself as maturity, sensitivity, communication. Meanwhile, it quietly shrinks your world, edits your reality, and turns your natural confidence into a permanent apology. What follows is a map of quiet control. The patterns, the psychology underneath them, and the exit path back to sovereignty. 1. Soft isolation. The social vacuum that looks like closeness. Control rarely starts with, "You can't see your friends." That's too obvious. Healthy men push back against obvious control. It usually begins as something that looks reasonable. A mood shift when you mention certain people. A sudden need for a serious talk right when you're about to leave. An unexplained sadness that magically appears on the night you plan to reconnect with your guys. If you're conscientious, you don't want to be the man who abandons a partner, so you stay. Then you notice a pattern. Every time you choose independence, the relationship becomes difficult. Every time you surrender independence, the relationship becomes calm again. That's conditioning. A manipulative partner doesn't need to forbid your social life. They just need to make it expensive. If meeting your friend costs you 2 days of tension, you stop meeting your friend. If going to the gym costs you a cold shoulder, you start missing workouts. If calling your brother turns into an argument about privacy, you eventually stop calling. Over time, your life gets smaller. And here's why that matters. A man without external reference points loses calibration. Friends, mentors, teammates, family, these aren't just people. They are reality checks. They remind you who you were before the relationship, what you value, what's normal, what isn't. Without them, the relationship becomes a sealed room, and the only mirror you have is the one your partner holds up. If that mirror starts showing you as selfish, incompetent, or emotionally dangerous, you have fewer witnesses to challenge it. That's how your identity gets negotiated down, one concession at a time. 2. Reality theft. Gaslighting as concern, not combat. In movies, gaslighting looks like an obvious lie. In real life, the most effective version is wrapped in tenderness. You remember an agreement. You remember a promise. You remember conversation clearly. But when you bring it up calmly, you get a soft rewrite. "I didn't say that." "You're misunderstanding." "You've been stressed lately." "I think you want to believe that happened." Notice what's happening. The disagreement isn't about the issue anymore. It becomes about your mind. A stable man can handle conflict. What breaks him is conflict plus uncertainty about his own perception. If it happens repeatedly, the damage isn't just emotional, it's cognitive. You start rechecking your memory, rehearsing conversations, doubting your instincts. You start explaining yourself more, clarifying more, asking permission more. And once you're asking permission to trust your own experience, you've handed away the steering wheel. The end state of this pattern is simple. You stop trusting yourself, so you rely on the person who keeps correcting you. That's dominance through doubt. It turns a competent adult into a man who feels like he needs supervision. 3. The guilt economy, emotional debt that can't be repaid. Another classic mechanism is building an invisible balance sheet where you are always behind. It often starts with genuine support, something meaningful your partner did for you. And that's normal. Relationships involve sacrifice. The trap is when sacrifice becomes currency. I was there for you when, after everything I've done for you, I gave up so much. If those statements appear as a weapon in unrelated disagreements, you're no longer in a relationship. You're in a debt contract. The past becomes a chain attached to your ankle. You aren't allowed to have needs in the present because the past is being used as collateral. And here's the part that really messes with men. Men tend to be fairness driven. If you feel you owe, you'll work to pay. You'll give more. You'll compromise more. You'll tolerate more. You'll take pride in being the guy who doesn't run from responsibility. But in the guilt economy, the debt is designed to be unpayable. Your effort is treated as basic interest, never as repayment. And any mistake, no matter how small, gets added to the principal. A man living in chronic moral deficit becomes easier to steer. His energy goes into staying out of trouble, not building a life. He becomes cautious, contained, manageable. He stops expanding. 4. Triangulation, the invisible rival, and the audition you never agreed to. A relationship becomes unstable when your place isn't secure, when you feel you're constantly being evaluated against an external standard. Triangulation is when a partner introduces a third point, real or imaginary, to create competition and anxiety. It can be a friend's husband who always knows what to say, a coworker who actually listens, an ex who had flaws but at least he was ambitious, a neighbor who handles things like a man. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's served as a funny comment, but the result is predictable. You start performing. You begin running on a treadmill, trying to beat a ghost. And because the comparison is unfair by design, highlighting someone else's best moments against your worst moments, you're almost guaranteed to feel inadequate. The deeper purpose is leverage. When you believe your spot is always at risk, you invest more for less return. You overfunction. You tolerate disrespect. You accept shifting goalposts. You become an employee fighting for a job you already have. That is not love. That is management. 5. Intermittent reinforcement, the dopamine loop that trains men like animals. If a person wants long-term control, they don't just target your beliefs, they target your nervous system. The most addictive relational pattern is unpredictable reward. Affection and approval delivered inconsistently. In the beginning, you get a flood, admiration, attention, warmth, intimacy, ease. You associate this person with relief, validation, and a feeling of being fully alive. Then the temperature changes. Suddenly, distance, coldness, silence, withholding, criticism. No clear reason. Your brain panics, not because you need them in some childish way, but because your nervous system got trained to expect a reward that now disappeared. You start working to get back to the good version. You offer more. You apologize more. You negotiate your dignity. Then, just when you're depleted, warmth returns, briefly, and because it's unpredictable, it hits harder. The relief becomes the reward. You're not chasing love anymore. You're chasing the end of pain. That's the casino model. You keep pulling the lever because the next hit might be the jackpot. Your logic knows it's unhealthy. Your biology keeps you glued to the cycle. Over time, this trains you into compliance. You become responsive to mood shifts, like a dog responding to a whistle. That's not romance. That's behavioral conditioning. 6. Retrospective rewriting, stealing your past to control your present. When someone wants to escalate control or justify a new narrative, they often rewrite history. Moments you remember as loving become manipulative. Boundaries you set become punishment. Your leadership becomes ego. Your protectiveness becomes control. Your ambition becomes avoidance. The goal is to collapse your confidence in your own story. Because a man anchored in his story has backbone. A man who can't trust his own history becomes pliable. If the past is recoded as, I've been suffering all along, then any resistance you show today becomes further proof of your guilt. You get trapped in a courtroom where the evidence is continually edited, and the judge is also the prosecution. Once a man feels ashamed of his own memories, he loses the emotional foundation that makes him resilient. He becomes easier to steer with accusation and implication. 7. Authority replacement. Discrediting your competence until you outsource your mind. This one is quiet and brutal. Your interests get mocked. Your hobbies get minimized. Your expertise gets reframed as luck. Your achievements get attributed to timing or help. Your opinions get treated as uninformed unless they align with your partner's view. At first, you shrug it off. Then you notice you talk less. You share less. You stop taking up space. You start deferring. That's the objective. Replace your internal authority with theirs. A controlled man isn't just obedient. He's uncertain. He becomes hesitant to trust his judgment. He asks for approval. He stops making strong calls. He becomes easy to live with, which in this context means easy to manage. 8. Public micro-humiliation. Status damage disguised as humor. The most poisonous criticism isn't direct. It's social. Small jokes at your expense. Cute stories that make you look foolish. Little comments that undermine you in front of others. A smile that gives the insult plausible deniability. Men understand status instinctively. When your status is chipped away publicly, you feel it in your nervous system. You become guarded. You stop speaking freely. You anticipate embarrassment. You avoid gatherings. And once you avoid gatherings, you've isolated yourself further. Exactly where control thrives. The sick genius of this pattern is that the partner who harms your confidence can also present themselves as the only one who really understands you. They create the wound and then offer themselves as the bandage. 9. The exit architecture. How men reclaim sovereignty without drama. So how do you break a system that doesn't look like a system? First, name it. Not emotionally, structurally. Men often resist admitting manipulation because it feels humiliating, but manipulation isn't about intelligence. It's about exposure. If someone learns your pressure points, your guilt reflex, your protector instinct, your desire to be fair, they can steer you even if you're brilliant. Honesty is step 1. Second, rebuild external infrastructure. Control thrives in isolation. Freedom thrives in connection. Reconnect with friends you trust. Get around men who tell the truth to your face. Re-enter environments where you are respected and challenged. Join a gym, a team, a class, a community, some place that reminds your nervous system what stability feels like. Third, restore boundaries in behavior, not speeches. You don't argue your way out of control. You behave your way out. Stop over explaining. Stop pleading your case in circles. Stop negotiating your basic dignity. Stop participating in prove you're good trials. A manipulator is not trying to understand you. They're trying to position you. The more you explain, the more material you hand them. Fourth, watch your body. Your body doesn't lie. If you feel chronically tense, sleep deprived, confused, constantly on alert, that's data. If your confidence drops, your performance drops, your friendships fade, your ambition shrinks, that's not relationship work. That's systemic harm. Fifth, set a simple standard. A healthy relationship increases clarity. It doesn't increase fog. It increases strength. It doesn't increase shame. It creates peace. It doesn't create chronic anxiety. It multiplies you. It doesn't reduce you. If the relationship consistently makes you smaller, you're not a partner, you're a resource. Sixth, if you decide to leave, do it like a man with strategy. Quiet control systems often escalate when they sense an exit. So you plan cleanly. Secure your finances. Secure your documents. Secure your housing options. Tell two trusted people what's happening. If you can, talk with a qualified therapist or counselor who understands emotional abuse dynamics. Don't announce your plan early if you suspect retaliation or sabotage. This isn't paranoia, it's maturity. Finally, protect the inner room. Every man needs an inner space that is not up for negotiation. Your mission, your principles, your self-respect, your relationship with your own mind. A partner can share your life. They cannot own your reality. The cost of insight is discomfort, but discomfort is cheaper than a life lived as a diminished version of yourself. If you want to go deeper, the next layer is learning the early signals. How quiet control shows up during the perfect phase when everything looks like chemistry and fate. That's where men get captured, not by cruelty, but by charm. And remember this, real love doesn't require you to become smaller to keep it. Real love doesn't punish you for autonomy. Real love doesn't demand you forget who you are. Your life is yours. Your mind is yours. Your spine is yours. Build relationships that make you more you, not less.